Hi guys, welcome to Tuesday, April 21st. So today we're just going to go over the Chapter 6 PowerPoint, which if previous chapters have been any clue, will probably take about 2 or 3 videos, unfortunately. But let's see what we can do. So let's get into it. So, Chapter 6 was Language, Barrier, and Bridges. So, there's a couple examples right here that really show how language is symbolic. I'm just going to pick this one.
Check out this ship. Check out this ship, right? Right? That's so gay. That's really gay. Dude, look at those pants.
Please don't say that.
What?
Don't say that something is gay when you mean that something is dumb or stupid. It's insulting. It's like if I thought this pepper shaker was stupid and I said, man, this pepper shaker is so 16-year-old boy with a cheesy mustache. Just saying. When you say that's so gay, do you realize what you say? Knock it off.
Okay, so, and then this other video is also a very good example of it, but I just want to show you one so we can get into it. Language is symbolic because we add. What we make words is what they mean. So the example that was given in the book is how the number 5, or holding up 5 fingers, symbolizes 5. But in other languages, that same word, like cinco, still this. It's still that symbol. So we just decided one day that this is 5. And we put that word to a symbol. Or also the number 5. The one that you see on your keyboard. We decided that that weird shape, that sort of S-shaped thing, was symbolizing a number 5. And by adding different levels or different meanings to a word, we suddenly can make negative connotations or positive connotations. The first time the word gay was used, or used for, was happy. And then we used it as describing something or someone as homosexual. But then people started using it rudely and said, hey, this is so gay, as in stupid, thinking that, people who are generally gay or homosexual are therefore stupid. So it added a negative connotation to it. So this video was part of a movement that was really popular when I was in high school, and I think it's still popular today, but it's less used. When I was in high school, that was a really, I don't want to say popular thing to say, but it was a common thing that a lot of people my age said, who obviously weren't in the gay community, said when they were calling something stupid. Or they would call something retarded, and it had the same negative connotation, and it just wasn't nice. So there was this whole movement where there was posters, and I think I've seen a couple of the posters that originated back when I was in high school that are still around East right now, but for the most part, yeah, that was a huge movement to get students and people my age to stop saying that, which I thought was an amazing movement. Because, like the chapter says, language is very symbolic. And a lot of questions asked, and obviously you can't get into small groups, but think about these questions. Is language powerful? Why or why not? How important is word choice? How have words changed? Come up with a list of words that have changed meaning or gained more than one meaning. Like I said, the word gay has evolved from being happy, describing someone as happy, to describing someone as homosexual, and then still using homosexual, but sort of calling something stupid in a way, but in a very negative connotation for homosexual people. And there's other words, obviously, that have changed meaning over the years. Okay, so language is symbolic. Words and signs are arbitrary, meaning just like I was talking about with the fives, signs have meaning because we put words to them. So the number 5, we're holding up 5 fingers, the sign, it stands for 5 because we say, we made that rule that that symbol or that little S number looking thing means 5. Symbolic language allows for more communication, can lead to communication breakdowns. So first, it allows for more communication, like sign language, because you can communicate with more people. And signs are pretty universal for a lot of people around the world. Like I was saying, how the number 5 is pretty universal, or putting up 5 fingers is pretty universal for saying 5 of something. Because a lot of times, a lot of different cultures use the same symbols, even though their words attached to it might be different, such as 5 versus cinco. And then can lead to communication breakdowns. Understandings and misunderstandings. So this is a really big thing. There's first the semantic rules. So these rules that we pretty much just follow to gain understanding. Sorry, let me get to my notes because I want to hit all the. So semantic rules in the book is simply defined as reflect the ways in which users of a language assign meaning to a particular linguistic symbols, usually a word. And then that's broken down even more so into equivocation, which we've talked about before. We talked about it, I think the last chapter we read, chapter 3. I think we talked about equivocation, which was ambiguous statements, which can cause misunderstanding. So ambiguous statements being, instead of saying, oh gosh, that dress is so ugly, you would say something ambiguous like, oh, that dress is definitely unique. So equivocal or equivocation. And then relative words. So these words gain their meaning by comparison. For instance, someone might say they come from a small town, and they consider small towns because their town's small, let's say of 1,000 people, because all the surrounding towns that they consider large or bigger have more than 1,000 people. While another person across the country or, in another state might say, that's not a small town, 1,000 people, that's not a small town. My small town has about 200 people. So relative words. Small for someone might be big for another person. And then static evaluation. So this is the incorrect belief that people are consistent or unchanging. So it's using the term is a lot. So Mia is short-tempered. Nicole is incredibly talented. Using that is saying, okay, they're stuck at that. They're static. They don't change at all. And that's not true. People do change, and they don't keep consistent. So yeah, they might be short-tempered at this point, but maybe they're not short-tempered later. Or they might have been short-tempered when you knew them back in middle school, but now they've worked on that and they're not short-tempered anymore. So static evaluation. And then there's abstraction. And it pretty much breaks down between abstract language, which is really just means vague language, abstract, and then behavioral language, which is not, it's more specific because it refers to specific things that people say and do. So understanding structure. So there's these syntactic rules that pretty much govern grammar. It's what we agree on as a group, that this is what grammar means, and this is what periods and commas and semicolons go, so that a sentence makes sense. Or this is how words are ordered in a sentence so that they make sense to the hearer or the receiver of this message. So John said, Marcia is the murderer. And then using those same words, John, said Marcia, is the murderer. So that gives two different meanings by just adding commas and quotation marks in different ways. These are the exact same words, but because of adding commas and quotation marks in different places, it takes on two different meanings. So first is saying John is saying that Marcia is the murderer, and the next one is saying Marcia is saying John is the murderer. So just commas and quotation marks and periods in different ways or in different places in a sentence can make the sentence take on different meanings. And then co-cultures may use different, not deficient, syntactic rules. So they might change syntactic rules a little bit to fit their culture better. Because every culture is governed and has different words that have different meanings. For instance, later on we go into the idea that in different languages there is words for something in French, like the feeling of something, where we don't have a word for that in English. So there's so many cultures that are based more on emotion or spiritual levels, and so their words show that versus Americanized language, which is pretty much kind of straightforward. But we'll get into more of that later. So understanding context. Pragmatic rules. Pragmatic rules are used to decide how to interpret messages in context. So that's usually shared by a culture or shared by individuals in a relationship. So examples. What do you infer by the following sentences? Would you like a drink? Would you like something to drink? So we infer by these pragmatic rules, would you like a drink? A lot of times in our culture, that kind of symbolizes, hey, would you like an alcoholic beverage? But while if you add something to the sentence, it adds a whole new level of would you like something to drink? So any type of drink, what would you like to drink? Instead of a drink as in more alcoholic beverage. And then there's the pragmatic rules of email. When reading an email, what do you think when you come across capital letters? Or even in a text message, when you come across capital letters, what do you think? You think that the sender is angry at you because they're shouting, or you think they're super, super excited, depending on the topic they have capital letters for. Or, yeah, so you think they're overexcited, they're over angry, or they're really, really happy. So, or yelling, sort of. And then there's the impact of language. So I found this really interesting and also very relatable. I didn't realize that I kind of thought about this at the back of my head, but didn't really place a name to it. For naming an identity, that when we think of someone's name, we make connections to it. And we think, so their name symbolizes something to us. For instance, a show that was really popular on Disney when I was younger was called Recess. And if you guys go to Disney Plus, they have the show on there. I think it's only like one season. Unfortunately, I always remember it being so much longer, but I think there's only one season on Disney Plus, and I forget if it extends longer. But there's definitely a couple movies that went off of that too. But anyway, they have this group called the Ashleys, and when I think about that word or that name, it's just like, oh yeah, Ashley's kind of a popular girl sort of name, especially back when I was a kid and this show was made. And so they use that symbolic name as a kind of considered for a popular girl group. And also the fact that if you know 80s movies references, there's this movie called The Heathers, which is kind of the same thing. It's using that name and that popularity of that name in the 80s as a popular girl kind of group name, kind of a popular mean girl kind of thing. And also how names, even especially last names, can symbolize cultural things. And so can first names, honestly, too. Like Danielle is French. I'm not French at all, but my first name, Danielle, is French. But McCarthy, that's my last name. It's Irish. I'm 50% Irish. And that last name holds a lot of meaning to me because I really love my Irish culture. Okay, we're gonna go to the next video. Stay tuned.